Welcome to Whimsy Woven Stories, where imagination takes flight and every tale is a journey into wonder. I think there are 100 ways to find out if your spouse is cheating or planning to cheat. The most obvious way is to go into your bedroom and catch some jerk in the act. My suspicions about Holly's potential infidelity arose in a less obvious way. Saturday turned out to be unusually cold. One of my household duties was to put winter tires on Holly's Escape. I smiled as I got into her car. The driver's seat heater was set to 3. I turned it off before heading to the local tire shop and waited for them to change the tires. When I returned home, Holly was dressed and waiting for me. "Greg, I need to go to the mall. Do you need anything?" Some men might have worried upon hearing those words because it usually meant our credit cards were about to take a hit. But Holly earns her own money, never overspends, and, best of all, it meant I could relax in front of the TV and watch Saturday football. Holly didn't let me relax, though. "Try not to spend the whole day in front of the TV. The kids need some father time." "Alright, darling." 3 hours later, Holly returned home with a shopping bag. Not bad for 3 hours, I thought to myself, then remembered something. "Sweetie, I left my sunglasses in your car. You forgot them." I put them in the console. I approached her car to retrieve the sunglasses. When I reached for them, I couldn't help but notice that the seat heater on her side was set to 3, but on the passenger side, it was on 2. Back inside the house, I found Holly in the kitchen. "Did you go shopping with someone today?" Holly made a strange face and waited for a moment before answering, "No." "Why do you ask?" Damn, she must have just lied to me. "No reason, just thought you were gone for a while and wondered if you had lunch with someone." Holly turned away, pretending to do something at the sink before responding. "No, I was completely alone." The passenger side seat heater set to 2 became the catalyst for my suspicions. I told Holly that I was going downstairs to cross off a few items from her urgent to-do list. The silence in my basement gave me time to contemplate that. It took half an hour of solitude and contemplation to realize that recently, all the signs were there. Coming home from work and not sharing details of her day, forgetfulness related to our home and family, sharpness towards me over the smallest things. Yes, the signs were there. How did I recognize the signs of my spouse's infidelity? Because I had encountered this before. My first marriage fell apart due to unfaithfulness. But not on my wife's part. I was the cheater. I was the one who came home late or worked on weekends. I was the one who forgot to bring home groceries from the list that Carol, my first wife, had given me in the morning. I was the one who attached great importance to trivial matters and started arguments over them. My affair with a colleague was in its 4th month when Carol found out. The affair began in one of the most common ways. A little flirting, friendly lunches with discussions of our partners and their shortcomings. It didn't take long for friendship to turn into intimacy. Carol trusted me and would never have suspected anything if my friend's cheating husband hadn't told Carol, showing her the photos taken by his private detective. Carol was devastated, saying she couldn't believe someone could betray her trust like that. Despite my vow to remain faithful for the rest of our days, she filed for divorce. "Why should I trust you? 2 years ago, you swore to leave all others. Look where it got us." 3 months later, I was single again. The thing is, I truly loved Carol. My affair was a foolish macho nonsense that led me astray. A beautiful woman wanted my attention, and I gave it to her to feed my ego. I lied to myself that it was just friendship. That something I shared with another woman wouldn't affect my relationship with Carol. In other words, I was a fool, like millions of other foolish cheaters. A year after my divorce, I moved to the other end of the country. From Atlanta to Seattle. 2 years later, I met Holly, courted her, and got married. I told her about my first marriage but didn't confess to marital infidelity. I simply said that my first wife couldn't cope with my, then, immaturity. Not an entirely false statement, just not the whole truth. Why raise suspicions? I had learned my lesson and would never cheat again. Holly and I were married for 6 years. We had 2 beautiful children when temptation struck again. My job required me to attend training sessions every 6 months. For 3 days, 20 operational employees gathered at our headquarters in Dallas twice a year. The same 20 people mostly attended each session, and over time, we grew close. Friendships formed, and there were even hints of a couple of romances. One of our group members was a woman from the Cleveland office. Karen Bates was an attractive unmarried woman in her early 30s who seemed to enjoy my company. We talked during breaks and lunches. One evening, it was probably my 4th session in Dallas, she asked if I would join some of them for dinner. It was a small group of 7 people. What harm could come of it? It was a fun company. After dinner, we ended up at a bar with a dance floor, where a band was playing. I danced with Karen and 2 other women from the group. After a few hours, I glanced at my watch. It was midnight in Dallas and 10 o'clock in Seattle. I hurried out of the bar without saying goodbye to anyone. As I returned to the hotel, I called Holly from my cell phone. Sleepy Holly answered after the second ring. Holly, it's Greg. Did I wake you up? It's all right, baby. Just glad you called. Sorry for calling so late. I went out for dinner and had a few drinks with others. I wanted to call to tell you that I love you. I'm walking back to the hotel now. Should I call you when I get to my room? No, baby. I'm just glad to hear your voice. How was your day? Long, too long. I'm flying out tomorrow at 3. I'll land at the Seattle airport around 5:30 and should be home for a late dinner. I miss you. I miss you too. The kids do too. Have a safe flight. I can't wait to see you. And no matter how much I wanted to stay on the phone, I didn't want to keep Holly waiting. She was holding down the fort at home, taking care of the kids and going to work. It can wear a person out, and I wanted her to relax. By the time I returned home tomorrow, we hung up, exchanging I love yous, as soon as I entered the hotel. I opened the door to my hotel room, sat on the bed, and sighed. God, that was close. One more drink and one more dance with Karen, and we probably would have been in bed together right now. What saved me was the sudden realization of all the warning signs from the affair that ended my first marriage. That night, I vowed not to ruin my marriage with Holly, as I did with Carol. For the next 4 years, I was able to keep that promise. I avoided Karen Bates and several other temptations that came my way. I wasn't George Clooney, but I had opportunities to stray if I wanted, but I kept it zipped, and as far as I knew, so did Holly. Up until now, with a renewed sense of direction, I climbed the stairs and entered our kitchen. 2 of our children, Sal and Barb, sat at the kitchen table chatting with their mother while she prepared dinner. It was worth the fight, but I needed to know how far Holly had gone. Had she crossed the line in the sand already? Was she in love with this guy? Where was the boundary? I felt Holly's gaze on me as I entered the room and grabbed a beer from the fridge. I sat down between the kids and joined the conversation. Holly looked at the 3 of us and smiled. In that moment, I realized she loved me. So why the hell would she jeopardize our family? Or had I jumped to conclusions? I tried my best to appear normal and clueless throughout the weekend. We even made love on Sunday morning before going to church. On Monday morning, I asked my boss for some personal time without going into details. He was kind enough to grant it without too many questions. I made a few calls and arranged to meet with the investigator. On Monday afternoon, I sat in the reception area of Sullivan's Investigations, awaiting a meeting with Jake Sullivan. I entered his office when the secretary announced me. Jake was a big man, reminding me of a TV show my father used to watch when I was a child. My dad had a full set of videotapes featuring a hefty actor with a mustache. What was his name? Frank Conrad or something like that. Jake saw the expression on my face, my blank stare, and chuckled. It was Frank Cannon with William Conrad in the lead role. That's what you're trying to remember, right? I can't read minds, I often get the same questioning looks. My wife says I should shave my mustache, but it's more fun this way. Jake and I exchanged a few more pleasantries and then got down to business. If what you told me is true, it won't take more than a week. We'll conduct some brief surveillance with a team of 2 people. Gather everything you need to make some decisions. The cost shouldn't exceed $10,000. If you agree, Shay will need to sign the contract, and I'll assign 2 operatives to start this by Wednesday. $10,000 sounded steep, but given all the circumstances, in the long run, it might be cheap. I agreed, shook Jake's hand, and signed the contract at his secretary's desk. On Friday evening, I returned to Sullivan's investigations, holding my breath. Greg, I've got good news and bad news. Damn. The good news is that your wife hasn't slept with that jerk yet. By the way, that jerk's name is Derek Turner. Derek Turner, Holly's boss. I had met him 3 or 4 times at Holly's work events. I'd never held a high opinion of the guy, and I had a feeling he thought even less of me. Always condescending when talking to me. I had to admit he was a good-looking man, roughly our age, and kept himself in shape. When it clicked in my mind, I noticed Jake watching me, waiting. Damn, this guy was in the right business. Perceptive, waiting for me to be ready to hear the next part. I nodded, and he continued. The bad news is that she might be planning to sleep with him soon. He asked her to join him at a work-related conference out of town in 3 weeks. She hasn't committed, but she's definitely on the verge. 2 of my operatives were watching both of them on Wednesday and Thursday. One sat nearby with them at the diner on Wednesday, and the other followed on Thursday. Neither of the operatives was noticed, I can assure you. On both days, there were no outward signs of affection. No handshakes, kisses, or any physical contact. And we managed to record their conversations on both days. The operatives carry special bags with parabolic microphones. I'll give you both tapes so you can listen for yourself. There's some background noise. You may need to listen a few times to get used to it and hear everything that was said. I took the CDs from Jake, treating them as if they were poison. That's not all. Based on what we heard on Wednesday, I followed Turner after work on Wednesday evening and Thursday. On Wednesday, he went straight home, but on Thursday, he left work and met another man at a bar. It seemed like they didn't care that they were in a public place. I couldn't hear the entire conversation, but I picked up enough to understand that your wife is not their first target. Considering what I heard, I confirmed this morning that the other man is James Young. Turner reports to Young. It appears that one of the previous victims was Karen Johnson. Your wife is a replacement for Miss Johnson. Young asked Turner how the seduction was going and berated him when Turner told him she resisted. Turner said he felt he would succeed as soon as she went with him on this business trip. He thought a little alcohol and dancing would overcome her restraint. He even confirmed something we have on one of the lunch break recordings, that Turner was seducing your wife with the promise of career advancement in the future if she participated in the program. Jake waited a few more seconds as I processed all of this. He offered me a cup of coffee from a coffee maker on his desk, but I declined, already too agitated. Jake continued. I can't stand such jerks. I wrote my notes immediately after their conversation. The conversation took place in a public place, and there's no expectation of confidentiality. My notes can be used in a civil lawsuit against these 2 and the company. If you need it, I'll testify in a deposition and in court. I'll charge you less than usual, just to nail these jerks. Today's expenses already account for nearly half of my initial estimate. If you need them to be monitored over the weekend, it will likely eat up the rest of your deposit. I pondered that for just a second. No, I'll listen to the recordings, but if what you've told me is all that has happened so far, perhaps we can overcome this. I'll talk to her tomorrow. There's no point in delaying. Unless she surprises me. If she agrees to counseling, that should help. I need to think about the lawsuit. Right now, I'm inclined to agree that these two bastards should pay. Jake shook my hand. Good luck. Let me know if you need anything else. We'll settle the bill next week, just in case. I headed home early and listened to the discs on my computer. Derek Turner spent most of both lunches trying to seduce Holly. He spent some time trying to convince Holly that I must have been unfaithful when attending the training sessions in Dallas. It was gratifying to hear Holly defending me when Turner spoke poorly of me. He tried to persuade her that it would be in her best interest to accompany him to the upcoming conference. It would be good for her career. He was about to get a promotion, and Holly had an excellent chance of getting his job when it happened. Turner took the time to compliment Holly's looks, intelligence, and abilities. When he mentioned that it would be wonderful to meet her in a more private setting, away from the everyday routine, to find out if their feelings for each other were something more than just friendship, Holly cut him off, saying it was time to get back to the office. That's where the recording from Thursday ended. That I could feel Holly resisting but succumbing to temptation. The attraction was clear. I had been there before and knew what it was like. If someone had intervened before my affair, my first marriage might have survived. It was time to intervene to save my second marriage. That I called Holly's parents to ask if they could look after the kids this weekend. Holly's mom was happy about the opportunity. I picked up Sal and Barb from school, brought them home to pack their bags, and then took them to their grandparents' place for a couple of days. Holly called me at 5, asking if she could come home a little later and have a drink with a few of her colleagues. She was taken aback when I told her, "No, come straight home. We need to discuss something." "Can't it wait?" she asked. "No, if you want to still be married to me after this weekend." "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about divorce if you're not home within the next half hour." "Greg, why are you talking about divorce? What's going on?" "Holly, just come home. I'm not going to discuss this over the phone." I hung up. 26 minutes later, Holly walked through the door. She looked like she had been crying. "Greg, what's this about divorce? Where are Sal and Barbara?" "They're with your parents." "Now tell me about your affair with Derek Turner." I don't think I could have surprised Holly more if I had punched her in the nose. The effect was almost the same. Her eyes widened, and she stuttered before finally uttering these words. "I've never cheated on you." I took a risk and called her bluff. There are different kinds of infidelity. Just because you might not have slept with him yet doesn't mean you haven't been unfaithful. Now, tell me about last Saturday evening. Holly froze. "We didn't do anything, just talked." "I swear to you." "Why on a Saturday? Don't you talk enough at work and during lunch? Are you spying on me?" "You can't change the subject. Tell me about your Saturday meeting." "I stopped by Derek's apartment. We went shopping and had lunch. I dropped him off at his place. He invited me in, but I said no and came home. No kisses, no hugs, no touching or caressing. He tried to kiss me when he got out of the car. I turned my head, and he kissed me on the cheek. I swear, that's all." "So, he went shopping with you. What did you buy?" Now Holly looked frightened. "A dress and some other things." "Stay here." I ran upstairs and looked in the closet in her bedroom. The bag was half hidden behind her hanging pantsuits. Inside the bag was a little black dress, a pair of high-heeled shoes, and, worst of all, pristine white lingerie. I came back downstairs, gritting my teeth. "What's this for?" Holly covered her face with her hands. She had been crying since I left the room. "Derek made me buy the dress and high heels in case he convinced me to go to the conference next month. If I don't go to the conference, they're for you to take me somewhere." "What about the lingerie?" Holly buried her head in her hands again and sobbed, "I'm sorry. He bought me that." "What were you planning to do?" I don't know, but I swear, I didn't do anything with him. Nothing physical, but... I couldn't finish. Are you going to divorce me? It depends on whether you want to stay married to me. Are you ready to end this crap with Turner? Yes, I want to be your wife. I never doubted it, and neither should you. And yes, I never want to be alone with Derek again. Holly got up from the chair and came over to me. She sat on my lap and buried her head in my chest. I'm so sorry. Please, don't hate me. I thought about pushing her off my lap, but I couldn't. I don't hate you, but that will change if you destroy our family. Holly and I spent that evening and all of Saturday discussing how we were going to move forward. If I had any doubts about Holly's love for me and our children, those doubts were dispelled by the time we picked up the kids on Sunday morning that we decided to see a family therapist together. Holly needed to reconcile her love for the family with the temptation of having an affair. Although it became evident that Derek Turner was an experienced womanizer. For instance, Holly said that on Monday morning, Turner asked if I had seen her purchases. When she replied that I hadn't looked into her bag, he turned it into another insult. See, your husband doesn't care about you. He probably has another woman on the side. I told Holly that the only reason I didn't ask about her purchases was because I had started to suspect something, and I needed time to think without losing my composure. I decided to tell Holly why my first marriage fell apart and how close I came to messing up the second time. I thought a consultant could help me tell Holly the truth in a way that wouldn't destroy our family. Honestly, our relationship could use some shaking up, and the right consultant could help us with that. We also decided to contact Holly's HR department and file an official complaint against Turner. While Holly was outraged after reading Jake Sullivan's notes about Turner and Young, everyone in the office was wondering what happened to Karen Johnson. She quit and left without saying a word to anyone. Holly resisted until we met with our consultant on Tuesday. She convinced Holly that it was the right course of action, and we returned the dress, shoes, and lingerie. However much I wanted to take Holly out in the dress or remove the lingerie from her lovely body, I couldn't look at them because Turner had chosen them. A year has passed since that weekend. Both Derek Turner and James Young were fired for cause based on Holly's complaint, and after the HR director listened to the recordings, read Jake Sullivan's notes, and had a subsequent conversation with Jake. Neither of them received severance pay. They were simply shown the door. Holly heard that they threatened with lawsuits but backed down after being threatened with countersuits. Speaking of lawsuits, in the letter from our lawyer, Holly received a substantial check from the company, and nothing more was said after she signed the agreement. We could have been tempted to pursue this further, but Holly's company did the right thing. They got rid of the scoundrels and settled with her quickly. The consultant truly helped us deal with our issues. Holly was surprised when she heard the real reason for the failure of my first marriage. She was hurt when, during our first session, I told her how close I came to cheating on her. The reason I decided to confess was simple. Holly needed to know that she wasn't the only one susceptible to temptation. Our marriage would be stronger if she didn't carry the burden of guilt. In the end, neither of us crossed the physical line, which made the emotional boundaries we crossed still damaging but not unforgivable. I genuinely believe that Holly and I are happier now than in the first year of our marriage. Both kids are doing great. Perhaps it's easier to raise children when two adults who love each other are involved in parenting. We've learned several important lessons. First, don't use another person to replace the emotional support you should be getting from your spouse. Especially when the other person has a reason to create barriers between you and your spouse. It can start with friendly lunches but often ends up in bed. Second, if you're doing something you're ashamed to tell your spouse about, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Third, communication. Do you have issues with your spouse? Tell them about it. I'm not naive. There are marriages that won't be saved by communication and information exchange, but if your marriage is worth saving, make time for communication. As we conclude our journey into the world of human relationships, please remember to subscribe, like, and share our content. Thank you for your support, and we look forward to seeing you in the next story.